Always remember, your father and the father of your father were never born rich, not because wealth was denied to them, but because no one told them that they could assume themselves into riches. They labored under the shadow of circumstance, believing reality to be fixed, unaware that they were the operant power. But you, standing now in the light of awareness, are not bound by their history. You can break the chain, not by toil, but by assumption, by entering the state of the one who already is and allowing the world to catch up with the self you now choose to become. You may believe you are poor. You may say, I do not have enough. But I tell you, poverty is not a condition of circumstance. It is a state of consciousness. And riches are not found in a bank, nor in the labor of hands. They are found in your inner conviction that you already possess them. You do not need to earn $1 million. You need to become the man or woman who would naturally possess them. And to become, you must assume. The drama of your life is written in your inner conversations, your nightly assumptions, and your unwavering feeling of I am. If you will sleep tonight in the feeling of being rich, and if you will remain faithful to that inner movement, you will not need to chase riches. They will arise naturally without strain or striving, for you will have become their rightful owner. Ladies and gentlemen, there is a secret known to the mystics of old, whispered in sacred texts and hidden in plain sight, a secret so potent, so absolute in its simplicity, that it escapes the notice of those who seek great effort and struggle as the price of their success. The world has taught you to chase, to grind, to wait. But tonight, I tell you, imagination, experienced consciously in the state of sleep, is the true passage to wealth. We are told, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. But what is the heart, if not that deep subconscious realm which governs your entire experience? And what is the thought that enters it most deeply, most effectively? It is the thought you bring with you into the doorway of sleep. When you lie down at night, your conscious defenses lower. The gate is opened between the world of shadow and the world of cause. And that which you feel to be true in the stillness of night becomes the law of your waking world. This is not theory. This is not wishful thinking. It is a law, as certain as gravity. Sleep is not mere rest for the body. It is the sacred transition in which the seed of your future is planted, the impressions received by the subconscious during that drifting state between wakefulness and sleep are the impressions that bear fruit. And so you must ask, what seed am I planting each night? What reality am I impressing upon the depths of myself as I fall into sleep? If you drift off in the feeling of lack, thinking of bills unpaid, of wealth unfound, of effort unfulfilled, then you carry those images into the soil of your soul, and from that soil they will spring forth again. The world outside will show you lack, not because you deserve it, but because you accepted it as real. But if you were to deliberately enter that sacred moment of surrender, the twilight between conscious and unconscious, with the image, the feeling, the assumption that you already possess all that your heart desires, then you have planted gold in your garden, and wealth, not as a fleeting condition, but as a state of being, will flow to you. Let us be practical now. If you desire wealth, do not simply imagine stacks of money, nor count dollar bills in your mind. Rather, imagine yourself already the person who lives in that financial freedom. Ask, what would I feel if I were already wealthy? How would I move? What peace would I carry in my chest? What would I wear, say, eat, give, do, if wealth were my natural condition? And when you have found that feeling, wear it like a robe. Lay your head upon the pillow with that state wrapped around you. You do not have to force belief. You need only feel as though it were true. Sleep, not in the effort to get rich, but in the conscious conviction that you already are. This is the bridge. This is the gate. This is the mystery that the world calls foolishness. but the wise know as power. Children understand this, for they dream boldly and live as though their dreams are fact. But adults, burdened by fact and form, forget the first law of creation. All things exist in consciousness first, and only then do they appear in the world of matter. Now I tell you this with love and with urgency. Do not let your sleep be wasted. It is not idle time. It is the temple hour. You do not need to beg, to plead, to hope. All you need is to assume the state of your wish fulfilled, and assume it so fully that the subconscious, which never doubts, accepts it as reality. There are no exceptions to this law. It works for the rich and the poor, the young and the old, the learned and the unlearned. For imagination is the divine gift given equally to all. You may not have inherited millions in currency, but you have inherited the infinite power to imagine, and that power is the source of all currency. If a man sleeps in fear, he wakes in fear. If he sleeps in resentment, he wakes to conflict. But if a man dares to sleep in confidence, with the quiet knowing that he is wealthy, that all is well, that supply flows to him without resistance, then the world must conform to that knowing. This is not arrogance. This is not delusion. This is faith in action. For faith is the evidence of things not seen, and the evidence appears only after you have believed, not before. The world is always a mirror, but you cannot change the reflection by polishing the glass. You must change the image that casts the reflection, and that image is formed in sleep. So tonight, when you lie down, forget what the world told you. Forget the numbers in your account. Forget the circumstances, the history, the reasons. They are not cause. They are effect. You do not sleep as the poor man trying to become rich. You sleep as the rich man remembering his wealth. You feel it, you live it in mind, and you surrender to sleep in the conviction that it is so. Do this faithfully, without strain, without doubt. Let your sleep become your sacred workshop, your altar of creation, and watch, as surely as the dawn returns, how the riches of imagination harden into the facts of your waking life. The world has conditioned you to believe that effort is the only path to success, that labor alone brings reward. From childhood you are taught that toil is holy, that the harder you strive, the closer you will come to your goal. But I say to you now, effort without inner assumption is like rowing upstream in a boat with no oars. It is movement without direction, noise without power. The true engine of manifestation is not struggle, it is assumption. And the assumption of wealth, quietly and faithfully held, is more powerful than years of restless striving toward it. You do not need to earn wealth. You need to assume the state of being wealthy and then act in harmony with that state. There is a difference. One begins with lack and tries to reach abundance. The other begins with abundance and lets the world rearrange itself to confirm it. Most people, in their sincere but misguided search for prosperity, start from the premise that they are not yet wealthy. And so every action they take, no matter how ambitious, is taken from a place of absence. That is why the results are slow and often empty. The secret is not in doing more, it is in being different. For when you assume a thing, you are no longer trying to get it, you are expressing from it. The assumption becomes your identity, and from identity flows your entire experience of life. Let me speak plainly. If you wish to become wealthy, then stop trying to become wealthy. Assume that you already are. Feel it as though it were true now, not as a fantasy, not as a vague hope, but as a present fact. Wear it in your imagination. Occupy that state internally, and when you do, something remarkable begins to happen. Your outer world will begin to yield to your inner conviction. Do not confuse this with mere wishing. Wishing is the confession that you do not yet have, but assumption is possession. Assumption claims what it desires with boldness, not arrogance. There is no strain in it, no begging, no pleading. It is quiet, serene, and complete. When you assume, you move through life with a subtle confidence, not because you are hoping to receive, but because you have already received. The world responds not to what you say, not even to what you do, but to what you are. And what you are is the sum total of the states you occupy in consciousness. If you live inwardly as one who has, the outer world will bring you evidence of having. If you live inwardly as one who lacks, the world will reflect lack. No matter how many hours you labor or how many steps you take, understand this: assumption is not pretending, it is a shift in consciousness, a movement from one state of being to another. When you assume wealth, you are not faking it, you are entering into it. You are inhabiting that state as your truth, and just as you cannot occupy two places at once, physically, you cannot dwell in wealth and poverty mentally at the same time. You must choose. And when you choose, you must remain faithful. Faithful not to appearances, but to your assumption. Appearances will tempt you to return to the old state, to worry, to doubt, to try harder. But remain unmoved. Let the world say what it will. Your business is not to fight the facts. Your business is to persist in the truth that you have already assumed. You may say, but I have bills to pay. And I would answer, pay them, but pay them as a wealthy person would. You may say, but I do not yet see the money. And I would say, the seed, once planted, does not bloom in an instant. Yet the bloom is guaranteed by the planting. Do not disturb the soil with doubt. Let your assumption work through the channels it knows best. Let your assumption work through the channels it knows best. Every great transformation begins not with action, but with assumption. The man who rises from obscurity to opulence does so not by accident, but by inner movement. At some point, silently, he assumed he was more than his surroundings. He walked inwardly in a different reality, and the outer world bowed to that inner truth. Law is always at work. It does not care if you assume wealth or poverty. It only brings forth the fruit of your assumption. The universe does not reward effort without inner alignment, but the moment you dare to assume the state of being wealthy and persist in that state through feeling, through imagination, and through your inner conversations, the outer world must and will conform. Action is useful only when it flows from being. Right being leads to right action, and right action brings effortless results. But action without assumption is like water without a source. You will spend your life running and never arrive. So tonight, as you contemplate your desires, I invite you to leave behind the burden of effort and pick up the mantle of assumption. See yourself as already wealthy. Feel the relief, the gratitude, the expansion. Let that be your dwelling place, your emotional home. From that place, all things are added unto you, not because you fought for them, but because you became the one who naturally receives them. There is a door each one of us passes through every night, unaware of its power, unconscious of its purpose, and ignorant of its laws. It is the door of sleep. And though the world may see it as mere rest, it is in fact the most fertile ground of creation. What you take with you into sleep, not merely the thoughts that flit across the surface of your mind, but the state you settle into, is accepted by the subconscious as truth. And what the subconscious accepts, it brings to life without fail. The outer world is a reflection of your inner convictions, and nothing impresses the subconscious mind more deeply, more purely, more directly than the state assumed just before sleep. The waking mind, throughout the day, is too often noisy, reactive, full of contradiction. It pushes and pulls, doubts and hopes. But as you prepare for sleep, the conscious mind begins to grow quiet. And in that quiet, a sacred opportunity arises. The subconscious, which governs your entire experience, becomes receptive. Like a garden made ready for planting, it waits to receive the seed. That seed is the feeling, the assumption, the the emotional truth you carry with you as you drift into slumber. So I ask you now, what state do you sleep in? Do you fall asleep as one who is afraid? Do you recount your debts, your disappointments, your frustrations? Do you rehearse conversations that never happened or dread tomorrows that haven't yet come? If so, know that you are impressing your subconscious with fear and lack, and it must reproduce that pattern in your waking world, not out of punishment, but out of law. But if you would dare to discipline your inner world, if you would fall asleep, not in fear, but in fulfillment, not in anxiety, but in assurance, then the subconscious, accepting that state as your reality, will go to work bringing it to pass. You will awaken not just from sleep, but into a world reordered by the image you planted before sleep. The world may tell you that your thoughts don't matter, that action is all, but thought, when fused with feeling and fixed in sleep, is the act of creation itself. It is there, in that delicate threshold between waking and dreaming, that you declare your identity. And the identity you assume, whether rich or poor, loved or unloved, strong or weak, becomes the cornerstone of your experience. This is why so few truly change. They seek transformation in the outer world, but continue to return night after night to the same inner dwelling, the same fears, the same limitations, the same story. They lie down as the same person and expect the world to shift around them. But change does not begin with the outer, it begins within, and it begins before sleep. To harness this power, you must make your sleep sacred. You must prepare for it as one would prepare for a divine meeting. For indeed, you are meeting with the deeper self, the infinite intelligence that shapes all things. Lay aside the facts of the day. They are not important. Lay aside your opinions of what is possible or practical. They are irrelevant. Ask yourself instead, what do I wish to be? What do I desire to experience? Who am I in truth? And then assume that you are already that. Feel the state, not mentally, but emotionally. If you desire wealth, feel the confidence of one who has never known lack. If you seek love, feel the joy of one who is cherished and adored. If you long for success, enter the calm certainty of one who has already achieved. Do not analyze it. Do not force it. Simply accept it and sink into sleep as though it were so. The subconscious does not reason. It does not weigh facts. It does not judge whether what you bring to it is true or false. It accepts whatever is felt as real, and because it accepts, it creates. You may fool others with words, but you cannot fool the subconscious with feelings. It knows not what is pretended. It only knows what is believed, and belief is nothing more than persistent assumption, especially the assumption carried into sleep. Some say they try this, and it does not work. But trying is not assuming. Trying still confesses doubt, and doubt is not the state you want impressed. You must become inwardly the very thing you desire, and you must do so as you descend into sleep. It is not enough to think of the desire. You must think from it. You must speak from it, feel from it, rest in it, and then, without strain, let go. Let the state carry you into unconsciousness, and the seed will be sown. And know this, once the seed is sown, the harvest is certain. It may not come tomorrow or even next week, but it must come. The subconscious never forgets the state in which it was last impressed. And that state, if it is held faithfully, will outpicture itself in ways you could not predict or control. The outer world will rearrange itself, people will play their roles, doors will open, and paths will clear, all to confirm what you assumed as true. So each night, do not drift into sleep thoughtlessly. Do not carry the worries of the day into the infinite silence. Choose your state. Choose it as you would choose your clothing. Clothe yourself in wealth, in joy, in confidence, in fulfillment. And as you surrender to the stillness, let that state be your final word to the subconscious. For what it accepts in sleep, it will make fact in waking. Let us set something straight once and for all. You are never manifesting money itself. You are never manifesting paper bills or numbers in an account. What you are always manifesting is a version of yourself, a different self, a transformed identity. The money, the wealth, the symbols of abundance, these are merely the shadows that follow the shape of the self you assume. It is not the object you should pursue, but the man or woman who already has it. For everything in this world is drawn to you, not by your effort to reach for it, but by the self you occupy. Money is not the source, it is the reflection. The source is consciousness, and the reflection is all that appears around you. And so the great task is not to chase money, but to assume the being, the state of consciousness that naturally includes money. Most people misunderstand this and spend their lives trying to get things. They try to attract money by fixing their attention on the money itself. But this is a subtle trap. You cannot attract what you constantly regard as separate from yourself. You cannot hold something far away in your mind and expect it to draw near in experience. All longing keeps the thing longed for at a distance. The more you desire something from the outside, the more you confirm it is not yet part of your identity. And the subconscious, taking this as truth, sustains the very condition of lack. But the moment you stop reaching and start being, all effort dissolves. You do not say, I want to be rich. You say, quietly but firmly, I am wealthy. Not because you are pretending, but because you are entering the state in which that wealth is natural, expected, and unremarkable. To the man who has truly assumed the state, wealth is no longer a miracle. It is normal. Everything you see in your life right now is a mirror of the self-concept you hold, not what you want to believe, not what you occasionally affirm, but what you deeply, habitually, unconsciously believe to be true of yourself. And if you do not like what you see, do not fight the mirror. You do not clean your face by scrubbing the glass. You change the image by changing the self that casts it. And how is that done? Not by effort, not by force, but by assumption and feeling. To manifest a version of you who already has the wealth, you must think, feel, and move as though you already are that version. You must wear the energy of that version the way you wear your clothes. Naturally, without needing to announce it, without effort. You must identify so deeply with that version that anything contrary begins to feel false. You are not poor trying to become rich. You are rich remembering your wealth. You are not unworthy striving to be accepted. You are already chosen, already approved. These are not affirmations, they are laws of being. When you feel your way into that state, the world begins to reflect your change. Ask yourself right now, who is the version of me that already has everything I desire? How does that version think, feel, speak, move? What decisions would I make if I were already that person? What things would no longer bother me? What worries would vanish instantly if I fully stepped into that identity? This is the work, not to chase results, but to relocate yourself in consciousness. The man who is wealthy does not concern himself with whether money will come. He knows it must because it already has. The version of you who is successful does not question whether the world will accept her. She speaks from a place of knowing, and the world simply reflects her belief. Now understand, this shift is not achieved by struggle. You do not have to force yourself to believe anything. Imagination is the bridge. If you can imagine the scene that would take place if your desire were already fulfilled, and if you can dwell in that scene long enough to feel its reality, you will begin to merge with that version of yourself. You will feel the change before you ever see it. And here is the secret. Once you feel it, the world cannot help but rearrange itself to match. People will move, opportunities will come, conditions will shift, not because you made them shift, but because the self you are now being demands it. Everything must bow to the law of identity. The outer world always confirms the inner self. So do not concern yourself with trying to manifest things. That is like asking the mirror to change its reflection while you remain the same. Instead, concern yourself only with the self you are assuming, and assume boldly. Assume with joy. Assume with the relaxed conviction that comes from knowing this is how the universe works. It is not your job to make the world deliver your wealth. It is your job to be the version of you who already has it and let the rest follow. That is the great secret. It is not what you want that matters. It is who you are. And you are not waiting to become. You are always becoming what you have already accepted as true of yourself. You have not been asked to strive for wealth, but to sleep into the state of being rich. To carry that feeling as you surrender to the silence of night and let it settle in the deepest part of your soul. It is there that creation begins. Not in the noise of the day, not in the logic of your bank account, but in the quiet knowing you take into sleep. For what you sleep in, you live out. This is not poetry, it is principle. You are not being called to work harder. The invitation is to assume more boldly. Assumption is the invisible act of faith, the silent claim that I am already what I desire to be. When assumed with feeling and persistence, it has no choice but to harden into fact. Do not confuse this with fantasy. Assumption is the only creative act that counts. All things follow the shape of the self you hold. And what is this self? It is not the version of you shaped by your past, your education, or your environment. The real work is to manifest the version of yourself who already possesses the wealth, the freedom, the confidence, the poise, and to become one with that version now. You are not here to chase money. You are here to remember who you are when lack is no longer your companion. All else will come to you when you no longer doubt that it already belongs to you. And so we return to the root of all transformation. The subconscious mind, that infinite mirror of belief. It does not reason, it accepts. It accepts what you feed it, not with logic, but with feeling. And the moment you impress it, especially through the sacred door of sleep, it must bring forth the fruit. What you feel as true, the subconscious makes real. And the world, obedient and blind, will echo back what you have assumed in the silence. Do not fear the silence. Enter it each night as a master enters his home. Choose your state as you would choose your future, for indeed they are one and the same. And when the morning comes, do not wait for signs. Walk as though it were already done. Speak from the end. Feel from the answer. And you will come to see that there is nothing to attain, only something to awaken within you. It has always been you. It always will be.